A landscape skewed wealth and power in Bangladeshi politics. Bangladesh, a vibrant democracy in South Asia, grapples with a persistent challenge: the overwhelming influence of wealth in its political landscape. The corridors of power are often dominated by individuals with substantial financial resources, creating an uneven playing field that hinders genuine democratic representation. This essay will delve into the factors contributing to this imbalance and explore potential solutions for a more inclusive political system. The stark reality is that running for office in Bangladesh requires significant financial capital, a barrier that automatically excludes a vast majority of the population. This financial hurdle creates a system where access to power is largely determined by wealth. As a result, the concerns and priorities of ordinary citizens are often sidelined. The consequences of this disparity are far-reaching. When political power is concentrated in the hands of a wealthy elite, it can lead to policies that favor their interests over the needs of the broader population. This can exacerbate existing inequalities and hinder the country's overall development. The lack of representation from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds further undermines the principles of equal opportunity and social mobility. It perpetuates a cycle where those born into poverty and disadvantage face significant obstacles in breaking free from their circumstances, even in the realm of politics.
The price of influence, election campaigns and the power of money. Election campaigns in Bangladesh are expensive endeavors, often characterized by lavish rallies, widespread advertising and extensive mobilization efforts. These activities require substantial funding, putting candidates from humble backgrounds at a significant disadvantage. The need to secure large sums of money to compete effectively creates a system where political influence is effectively bought and sold. Candidates are compelled to court wealthy donors and interest groups to finance their campaigns. This dependence on financial contributions can compromise their independence and objectivity once in office. Politicians beholden to their financiers may prioritize policies that benefit their patrons rather than serving the best interests of their constituents. This transactional nature of political financing erodes public trust in the political process. When citizens perceive that politicians are more accountable to their donors than to the people they represent, it breeds cynicism and apathy towards democracy itself. The high cost of campaigning also discourages qualified individuals with limited financial resources from entering politics. The lack of transparency in campaign financing further exacerbates the problem. Without clear regulations and mechanisms for disclosure, the sources of political donations often remain shrouded in secrecy. This opacity makes it difficult to track the influence of money in politics and hold politicians accountable for potential conflicts of interest.
Corruption's grip nepotism, patronage, and the erosion of trust. The concentration of wealth and power in Bangladeshi politics creates fertile ground for corruption. When political office is seen as a means to amass personal wealth and privilege, it undermines the very foundations of good governance. Nepotism and cronyism become rampant, with positions of authority often distributed based on personal connections rather than merit or competence. This culture of patronage extends beyond the political sphere, permeating various sectors of society. Contracts are awarded, licenses granted, and appointments made, not on the basis of transparency and fairness, but through a web of personal favors and backroom deals. Such practices stifle competition, hinder innovation, and discourage foreign investment. The lack of accountability and transparency further emboldens corrupt actors. Weak law enforcement and a judiciary susceptible to influence create an environment where wrongdoing often goes unpunished. This impunity fosters a climate of impunity, discouraging whistleblowers and perpetuating a cycle of corruption. The erosion of public trust is perhaps the most insidious consequence of widespread corruption. When citizens lose faith in their elected officials and institutions, it undermines the legitimacy of the entire political system. This can lead to apathy, cynicism, and a reluctance to participate in democratic processes, further weakening the foundations of a healthy democracy. Section 4. Beyond the ballot box: violence, intimidation, and the silencing of dissent. Political violence and intimidation cast a long shadow over Bangladeshi politics, The use of force, threats, and coercion to silence opposition voices and manipulate electoral outcomes is a deeply concerning trend. This violence is often directed at political opponents, journalists, and activists who dare to challenge those in power. The pervasiveness of political violence creates a climate of fear and self-censorship, discouraging citizens from freely expressing their views or participating in the political process. It undermines the principles of free and fair elections, depriving citizens of their fundamental right to choose their leaders without fear or intimidation. The nexus between political violence and the concentration of wealth and power is undeniable. Powerful individuals and groups often resort to violence to protect their interests, silence dissent, and maintain their grip on power. They may employ armed gangs, manipulate law enforcement agencies, or exploit existing social divisions to achieve their political ends. This violence has a chilling effect on democracy, eroding public trust, discouraging participation, and perpetuating a cycle of impunity. Addressing this challenge requires a multi-pronged approach, including strengthening law enforcement, promoting a culture of tolerance and dialogue, and holding perpetrators of violence accountable.
Section 5. A David and Goliath Struggle. The plight of financially disadvantaged candidates. The financial barriers to entry in Bangladeshi politics create a formidable obstacle for candidates from humble backgrounds. Without access to significant financial resources, it becomes exceedingly difficult to compete against wealthy opponents who can leverage their wealth to gain an unfair advantage. The lack of financial resources puts these candidates at a significant disadvantage in every aspect of campaigning. They struggle to raise funds for essential campaign activities such as printing posters, organizing rallies, and mobilizing voters. This financial disparity limits their ability to reach out to voters, communicate their message, and build a strong support base. The lack of financial resources also makes it challenging for them to hire experienced campaign staff, access professional media services, or effectively utilize technology for campaign purposes. As a result, they are often outspent and outmaneuvered by their wealthier counterparts, limiting their ability to run competitive campaigns. The absence of effective campaign finance regulations further exacerbates the challenges faced by financially disadvantaged candidates. Without limits on campaign spending, wealthy individuals and groups can pour unlimited resources into elections, drowning out the voices of those with fewer resources. The lack of transparency in campaign financing makes it difficult to track the sources of funding and expose potential quid pro quo arrangements between donors and candidates. This opacity perpetuates an uneven playing field, discouraging qualified individuals from humble backgrounds from entering politics and limiting the diversity of voices represented in government.